Hey everyone, and welcome back to the news. So, a massive community-level drama happened yesterday, once again regarding the actions of Activision Blizzard. Now, you won't have seen it covered in the regular gaming press that much. Why? Well, it ended up being a bit of a nothing burger as a news story, but it did spawn a really large discussion. So, okay, here's the deal. Multiplayer games often come with DLC, and they often run into a problem where you could be in a party with your friends, only half of you will have the DLC, so as a group that would mean you couldn't play the DLC content. Now, that's a bit of a problem, and normally games tend to have some sort of marker, some sort of identification on the UI to let people know that this is happening. Now, the fact that this is even a problem does speak to the inherent dangers of splitting up your player base and how companies absolutely do need to evolve their business models and their offerings, but for some titles, that is just the way that it is. Well, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 had an update yesterday when the Season Pass stuff kinda launched. Players logged in and they found that anyone who did not own the Season Pass had a big yellow warning triangle beside their name, even in public lobbies. And it absolutely seemed like they had implemented a mark of shame, something to point out these second-class citizens. And on face value, most of our team here pretty much laughed at how evil it felt and how it basically seemed like it was negging people into making a purchase. Then one of the Call of Duty players on the team pointed out that every game has done that in the past, but that it was really odd to have it always be visible, even in a public lobby. And, at that point, it would just be being horrible to customers. It wouldn't be the original system where it would just be denoting if your private party could play DLC content or not. Well, a very, very quick search happened on the internet, and it just turns out it was a display bug, and it was fixed. The marker was only meant to show in a party so that you would know why maps were not appearing in the rotation. It wasn't meant to be a mark of shame. At least that's what they claim. But at any rate, it was fixed within a few hours, I think like 3 or 4, with the yellow marker behavior returning to how it has been in all recent Call of Duty games. Now, of course, much of this is driven by Black Ops 4 being a little bit of a bad boy as of late. While the game sold extremely well, especially on PC, they ended up trying to sell a red dot site for $1. They literally tried to sell a small red circle for $1. What? I mean, is this even reality? So yeah, things like that primed their audience to be angry at stuff, going on. Now, we always have to be inquisitive. And it is possible that this was intended behavior that was rolled back, because of backlash. That absolutely is possible, but I don't think that it's likely, mainly because it would be so tremendously evil that I just don't see it being approved. Personally, I do think it was a display bug, and I think what's more important here is the discussion about headlines and narratives, because the Reddit thread hit 100k upvotes. That's massive, and this absolutely did the word of mouth rounds. Will the follow-ups do the word of mouth rounds? Probably not, and that kind of leads us into a bit of a problem of modern communications and how all of these things work, and it all follows from memes. Not the silly internet jokes, but memes as a derivation from genes, from Richard Dawkins' breakout 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. Yup, Richard Dawkins, that one, created memes in the 70s. Now, of course, he was applying, a bit of the sort of, evolutionary model to the transmission of ideas, which kind of makes sense. He's an evolutionary biologist. Now, I think that reading the relevant parts of that book to this discussion really does help understand how the internet works, because even though that book was written well before the internet was really a thing, it absolutely is spot on. The spread and the evolution of ideas self-propagate, that was something to contend with back in the 70s. But the big difference is how that spread is now gamified through mechanics such as likes, upvotes, and retweets. Now, people are often more likely to be driven to a negative story, for sure. So combine that with how modern tech works, and bam, you have this problem where the most alarming and earliest version of a story gets to be the most widespread. It morphs and changes through a game of telephone as it spreads its way across the internet. And when the actual truth of the situation is brought to light, the same process does not happen, because in reality, the world is actually pretty boring, and the truth is normally pretty boring. And that brings me on to a conversation that I was recently actually having about 4chan with one of the people on the team. Now, I mostly missed out on the heyday of that site, but essentially what people seem to have loved about it is its very simple social mechanics. It was anonymous, or is anonymous, and there were no upvotes. There were just replies. making posts and making threads, with a thread being bumped whenever somebody would make a post on it. Now, other than a thread being interesting and garnering attention, there's not really anything like a Reddit upvote or a retweet. It actually operates as more of an idea meritocracy, as the only way for a thread to last longer and therefore get more exposure is through continued conversation, not, click and run upvotes, as we see in something like Reddit. So, I think it's something we need to be mindful of. Clearly, though, with the Blop situation, it's not great, and upon further digging, it does seem to be an expression of broad player dissatisfaction with the Season Pass. Basically, it seems like you have to buy the Season Pass all at once, you don't get separate DLCs, and right now, upfront, it does not come with a lot of maps, and finding a game with those new maps can be tricky. And I'm kind of amazed they went in this direction. Now, for all the controversy that's followed it, Battlefield 5, it did sort of one thing, right? It abandoned player base splitting DLC with all future maps and guns being free. Call of Duty not having that, but still trying to be a live service game, is kind of strange. It seems like they think that people should buy the Season Pass, and really it's the Season Pass that gets them into the live service. Now, as much as I do prefer the core of the Battlefield 5 system, it's fair to say that is a strange game with its own set of problems, because sure, the DLC practices on paper seem to be good, but it launched with a historically low number of maps, many of which are pretty average in quality, and with a slow rollout of new ones. Now, sure, that constant drip feed is nice, but it does not come on top of a healthy base game that I think was worth its price, and it sometimes does feel like you just paid full price for half the game that we would have got years ago, with the other half of the game slowly making its way down the internet tubes over the following months. Now, one has to wonder if Battlefield 5 is making money. I haven't heard glowing reports, but we will need to wait and see for the next quarterly earnings call for EA, which is on the 5th of February. Now, it could be that people just don't care about cosmetics in first-person shooters. I mean, I sure as hell don't. Be it COD, be it, Battlefield. I just don't care about that sort of thing. And I mean, part of the problem could be that these companies, they're trying to basically capture the GDP of America with these insane expectations. Putting so many eggs into the basket instead of just trying to cut the costs, on a game like Call of Duty, to maybe cut down on the marketing, have something that is lean and works for its players, and then maybe put the excess budget into having a more diverse portfolio. And I mean, that's especially true for Activision. They're publishing Sekiro, they're publishing Crash Team Racing, and Call of Duty. Destiny's gone, and more than any publisher, they have seemingly given up on the idea of having a diverse portfolio of products. At the very least, the likes of Ubisoft do have their indie initiatives to make smaller, more creative games, and sure, they won't make or break the company on their own, but surely having a healthy ecosystem of multiple games and multiple franchises is better than just having one big franchise that you have to squeeze as hard as is possible. So, in closing, this is the story of really a case of utterly disastrous optics and then modern communication. If they intended what that was initially, then they're acting like utter rats. But I don't actually think that's the case. I do think it was a bug, and I think that the outrage the players are expressing is really it's an expression of dissatisfaction with the business model and the insane $1 red dot site, which is just ridiculous. So there you go, that's the situation with Black Ops. I think the risk factors of the various business models that we see today, and a bit of a reflection on how ideas spread across the internet. For me, the big takeaway is that precision and accuracy lead to the most effective criticism. That's what I've always tried to do with WoW. I think when being critical, the scalpel is better than the blunderbuss, and sometimes the internet favors the blunderbuss. So, there you go, that's my thoughts on this topic. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you very much for listening. There'll be more in this channel in the coming days, so be sure to sub. And again, it's a new channel. The support's been just amazing. Thank you so much for supporting, and we'll keep on going. Cheers, I'll see you next time.